Your buyer just canceled, the deal is dead, and you're probably sitting there right now thinking, what did I do wrong? Was it the price? Was it the house? Was it the inspection? Is this thing ever going to sell? Whew, take a breath, because I'm going to tell you something that most sellers don't hear until it's too late. Buyer cancellations are not the end of your sale. You don't need to throw in the towel. They're just part of the process. And how you handle the next 7 to 10 days is going to determine everything. I'm Jamie Herring with the Herring Homes team of Coldwell Banker Realty, and I have helped buyers and sellers throughout the Chicagoland area for more than 11 years. And I have sold over 1,400 homes. And in this video, I'm gonna walk you through exactly what to do step by step when your buyer walks away. Before we do anything else, we need to ask one simple question. Why did they cancel? Because the answer changes everything about what will come next. In my experience, buyer cancellations usually fall into one of 3 categories. The first is buyer's remorse. Honestly, this is probably the most common. The buyer gets under contract, maybe it got bid up in a bidding war, they start imagining their life there in that home, and then doubt creeps in. Maybe they got their mortgage payment, maybe it's the commute. Maybe a family member started giving them opinions. This happens a lot. But maybe simply they got scared. And while that can be incredibly frustrating as the seller, the reality is that it often has absolutely nothing to do with your house. The second category is inspections. The buyer hires a home inspector, concerns are identified, and now the buyer either wants repairs, credits, or maybe they decide they're no longer comfortable moving forward with the purchase. The third category is circumstances that are outside everyone's control. Job loss, financing issues, a family emergency, a lender changing course late in the process. These things happen more often than people realize. And if your buyer lost their job and couldn't close, that's not a reflection of your home's value. That's life just happening. So before you make any decisions, ask your realtor this question. What exactly caused the cancellation, and what can we learn from it? Because the lesson determines the strategy you're going to use. Here's the move most sellers don't even know is available. Before your home ever goes back on the market, go back to the buyers who originally showed your house and showed interest. Think back to when you accepted the offer. Were there other offers? Were there buyers who showed it once or twice and toured the home and were seriously considering it? Were there agents who called to ask questions? If so, your realtor should be reaching out to those buyers immediately. They have a second chance. This is one of the biggest advantages of working with an experienced agent who stays engaged throughout the entire process. Because a good agent doesn't forget those people. I am on the phone calling them going, hey, are you still interested? The buyer's got cold feet, let's put something together. And we are able to move that contract forward without going back on the market. A good agent doesn't forget those conversations they've had in the past. We know who was interested. We know who was disappointed that their offer wasn't accepted. And we know who still may be looking. Sometimes those buyers have spent the last few weeks looking at other homes and they haven't found anything just as nice as your house. Sometimes they've been quietly hoping for your deal to fall apart. And sometimes they're thrilled to get a second shot to call your home their new home. I've seen sellers save days and sometimes weeks by simply going back to those buyers first. In some cases, you can secure another contract. We don't even have to put it back on the market, and I just change the agent ID in the MLS. That's always my first move. If there isn't another buyer waiting in the wings, then you need to reset. And I mean truly reset. Walk through the house as if you're seeing it for the very first time. Because during a contract period, things happen. People stop paying attention to the details. You start bringing out the boxes. The entryway gets cluttered. The kitchen countertops now have all your appliances back on them. The staging is either shoved in a box somewhere or looking a little tired. And maybe you've mentally started moving, or you are physically moving and you're packing. So now, unfortunately, you have to bring everything back to day one condition. Get a deep clean, touch up the paint, replace any burnt out bulbs, restage the rooms that have lost their impact, freshen up the landscaping, make the house feel special again. Because the next buyer doesn't know there was a previous contract and doesn't know why you canceled. To them, this is their first impression. and first impressions still matter. Now let's talk about the biggest mistake sellers make after a cancellation. They panic, and I understand why. It's happened. I've been on both sides of it. You got excited, you made plans, maybe you started looking at your next house, or you scheduled the movers. Maybe you started packing, and now it feels like everything just got ripped away. The temptation is to do something dramatic. Cut the price, offer huge concessions, take the home off the market entirely. Don't. A canceled contract does not automatically mean your home was overpriced. If the buyer lost their job or got cold feet, had financing problems, or experienced a life change, lowering the price doesn't solve any of those issues. So before making major changes, look at the facts. How many showings did you have? How many offers did you receive? How quickly did your home go under contract? What feedback were buyers giving before the cancellation? Those answers mattered far more than your emotions in the moment. The sellers who recover the fastest are usually the sellers who stay calm and make decisions based on data, not fear. Once the house is reset and you've evaluated what happened, it's time to relaunch. And this is where strategy really matters. So in many cases, your agent may recommend going on the market again as a new listing, assuming it's permitted in that MLS, and you'll need to sign something for us, but the benefit is obvious. Now, it's probably not gonna wipe out your days on market, but buyers with saved searches receive new listing alerts, you're gonna have new visibility, and the property gets reintroduced to the market with renewed momentum. Regardless of how the listing is entered in the MLS, our goal is the same. We need to create a fresh launch. So I might rearrange the photos. I might have an open house that weekend. We'll update the remarks. I'll adjust the marketing strategy because now we're in a different situation. And timing matters too. If your house gets canceled on a Friday afternoon, you may want to take the weekend, reset. I like to list houses on Wednesdays, Thursdays, or Fridays because buyers and their realtors are making plans for that weekend. You don't want to put it back on the market on a Sunday or Saturday. They are out and they are not looking at their phones. You want buyers to notice when you come back on. This is another mistake I see all the time when you've been through a cancellation. You become emotionally exhausted and you might be ticked off. Then an offer arrives and every instinct tells you to sign that offer immediately. Get it back under contract. Slow down. If your home just came back on the market and the activity is strong, give the process room to work. If you relaunch on a Wednesday or Thursday, and let's say you receive an offer on Friday, consider setting a response deadline for Sunday evening or even Monday morning. Let the market respond because sometimes the best offer isn't the first one. We want to have those showings again. It's the buyer who toured on Saturday, went home, talked it over, and then decided they absolutely have to have your house. That first offer that came in right away on Friday may not be the best offer, but you won't know unless you give yourself the opportunity to find out. Don't let fear make the decision. Let the market speak first. Now, if the cancellation was related to inspections, we need to approach things a little differently. One thing many sellers don't realize is that in Illinois, there can be liability concerns when it comes to receiving and reviewing a buyer's complete inspection report. That's why many attorneys and brokers advise sellers not to automatically request or accept the entire report. Instead, we might ask for documentation related to one specific issues because what we don't want is to see this whole report and now you're liable because you know what's wrong with your house. So maybe it's a roof issue, maybe it's electrical, maybe it's foundation related. The goal is understanding the concern without necessarily taking possession of the entire inspection report. Talk with your attorney and your realtor about the best approach for your situation. However, if the buyer found out there's a radon, and let's say the radon levels were above 4.0, and you're like, I'm not gonna change it, but now you know. So you will have to change that radon disclosure to say that you are aware that there's elevated radon levels in your house. That is the one thing we do not want to break apart a contract. If you have elevated radon levels, you're probably gonna have to install the mitigation system. Once you understand the issues with the inspection, you have options. You may decide to make the repair. You may just get estimates from licensed contractors. You may decide to disclose and reissue the price accordingly. Or you may determine it was a buyer-specific concern and it doesn't require any changes at all. What you don't want to do is immediately rush back to the market without understanding why the deal failed. Gather the facts, create a plan, then relaunch from a position of confidence. Here's what I've learned after helping sell more than 1,400 homes. A canceled contract feels enormous when you're living through it. It's very stressful. It feels personal, it feels frustrating, it feels like a major setback. You might be mad, and that's okay, but 6 months later, most sellers can't even remember the buyer who walked away. What they remember is the buyer who actually closed. The sellers who recover the fastest are usually the calmest. They don't panic, they don't slash the price overnight, they don't assume something's terribly wrong with their house and take it off the market. They step back, they evaluate what happened, and we come up with a really good plan, and we move forward. Because just one buyer said no. The market did not say no. So if you're going through this situation right now and you want help navigating it, reach out to me at realtorjamie.com or drop a comment below. And if this video was helpful, give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and I will see you for my practical, no-nonsense advice next week.